It's your nipple. You should have it put up. Don't get mad at me because you left your nipple out and I'm looking at it. That's what you should think about when you go out into the world. Don't entice no man to be looking at your ass. Then he won't be guilty of stealing too many glances from you, because the natural chemistry in a man is going to make him look at a woman that's sitting down with her legs open and all that stuff. That's how nature works. You can't get mad at a man for being a man, but you can get mad at a woman for abusing the power that she has sexually over a man. That's what you could get mad about. And that would only happen in a society that permits desperate housewives to be shown on television. So as you can see, this white guy is responsible for a whole lot of decadence on this planet, not the black man. The black man is a victim of the white man.
Russell?
And the black woman is also, and so is the white woman. I ain't saying this to be mean. I'm saying this because people need to redirect their energies of fixing the world at what the problem is. You find the problem and fix the problem. Don't be trying to fix a problem by creating more problems. I mean, killing all the black people on the earth can't be a fix a problem. That is creating a problem. Any intelligent person should know that right off the damn top.
Author, Medical Apartheid.
In the early 20th century, the white elitists who made up the eugenics movement were no longer just philosophers and academics. Now they were industrialists and billionaires who had come to embrace a worldview that was essentially identical to the eugenics movement. The same individuals and corporations who had once made millions on the backs of slaves were now willing to spend millions to get rid of them. But that didn't mean that these guys were interested in being public crusaders for the eugenics movement.
Okay, listen, they wasn't trying to get rid of slaves. This is what it was all about. They want to kill the large number of black men, not slaves, black men. There's a difference. See, the black men is the ones like me that can walk around the earth and have the interaction with the sunlight, and the sunlight will kill their ass. They know that. That's what the problem is. But see, they done messed up because we done moved into the age now where it's too late to stop it. It done already started and they know that. That's the reason they asses is running for high ground. But my point being this, they ain't never tried to kill slavery. See, don't ever believe that. They find a way to manage slavery to be not as noticeable and not as right in your face. But that's only because their asses is very conniving and cunning at what they do. So what they wanted to do was get control of the black woman, because the black woman, with the right control of her, with the right control of the black woman, you will have a steady flow of controlled black men that could come right out of her country, right into the jail system with her help. And that's just what's been going on, because she's not teaching her son to grow up and be a man and support himself. She's teaching her son to grow up and worship Jesus and look for the white man to be his answer to his problems. And that right there is some traitor ass shit.
They were certainly willing to be the brains and the money behind it, but they would hire crusaders to do the dirty work. And the primary one they settled upon was a woman named Margaret Sanger. She was the founder of the American Birth Control League and the publisher of its newsletter, the Birth Control Review. On a practical level, the relationship between Sanger and these elitists was basically a marriage of convenience. In order to advance their common agendas, they needed a front man and she needed money. And the whole thing would be held together by this kind of bizarre obsession with race and class. The result was that the American Birth Control League became the driving force behind the American eugenics movement. Eugenics would no longer just be a philosophy. Sanger and others like her were going to put it into practice.
We are paying for and even submitting to the dictates of an ever-increasing, unceasingly spawning class of human beings who never should have been born at all. Margaret Sanger, 1922.
The laws of nature require the obliteration of the unfit, and human life is valuable only when it is of use to the community or race. Madison Grant, 1916, co-founder, American Eugenics Society.
The black man has never been a competitor, but has always been subservient to the white race. And just so long as he remains subservient, his position is secure. And just so soon as he becomes a competitor, his fate is sealed. Dr. Benjamin Hayes, eugenicist, 1905.
The American Birth Control League was wise enough to get their program of population control across by using what had worked in the past, the same code words that had established the institution of slavery and that was also used by the early eugenics movement was once again used by the American Birth Control League. The Margaret Sangers of those days did not come out and say they were trying to eliminate black people. What they did say, they were trying to rid society of the feeble-minded. They were trying to rid the society of the criminal. Well,
and look how those bastards had the nerves to use our pyramid. Ain't that something? They put our pyramid in some bullshit propaganda to get our asses wiped off the planet of the earth. They had the nerves to say that we are feeble-minded and less than them and unfit, but at the same time they're using our geometric design to perpetuate the triangle of life. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? To show you what's wrong with the world is because of shit like this. You're going to come out and utilize all the knowledge that a people has brought, murder them, stagnate new knowledge from coming in, and then don't even understand that once all these people is gone, the only knowledge we have left is the knowledge that we utilize to murder all them. It's kind of like the same stupid shit you guys do when you murder your own God and then turn around and want to worship it after it's dead. I mean, some shit just don't make sense.
Successful simply because of her eugenics friends for the past 50 years had put those labels on minorities and African Americans, and therefore society was more or less desensitized. In effect, the code words hid the agenda of Margaret Sanger and the eugenists. At that time, they did shift over to what they call the quality of life. It was a philosophy unquestionably used to target the poor simply because what the quality of life at its core meaning was that poor people really didn't have a reason to live. Only.
See, that's the reason they keep people poor. Because if you were not poor, you would not have no need for them. Anybody that can sustain themselves has no need for no freaking oppressor. The only way an oppressor can oppress is that he have to keep you where you need him. All right? So if the world was left alone, where people was able to dig through the garbage can that had a knowledge of how to go in the garbage can and make a living for themselves, then even with all the contamination that has been done to the earth, there is still remnants of things left that a wise man can go out and utilize to still sustain itself. But then you have the beast on the earth that wants to see nothing but everything be dead. That's the reason why Elvis Presley been dead so long, but he's still, in the mind of you white people, is the king of rock and roll. You guys can't go find a living rocker that's alive and walking the earth right now to be the king of rock and roll. No, you want to hold on to his dead ass, like Santa and dead ass Jesus. And this is a problem on the earth because you got everyone else on the earth mimicking that. And it all started with these bastards on here that had problems with themselves, that they didn't like themselves. So what do? They go out and take their self-hatred out on people that always reminded them of how incomplete they were. Black men, black women, and black children. There is something seriously psychotic about a race of people who will sit around and let some shit like that happen.
The white, those with status, had any chance of a meaningful or purposeful life. The solution for the poor now was not to eliminate the circumstances that would cause poverty. Their solution now was to eliminate the poor, eliminate the impoverished, and just wipe them off the face of the earth.
And that's what you guys are doing right now.
The practice of birth control among the majority of colored people would probably be more eugenic than among their white compatriots. The dissemination of the information of birth control should have begun with this class, rather than with the upper social and economic classes of white citizens. Walter Turbining, Birth Control Review, 1932.
In virtually every community where Negroes dwell, one finds them in fat times and lean alike, contributing a disproportionate number to the roles of the dependents and delinquents. They make excessive demands on the white man's charity and overtax his patience. Newell Sims, Birth Control Review, 1932.
After 500 years of slavery on your own land. On your own land.
Author
Ain't
Madison
that some
Grant
shit?
was a co-founder of the American Eugenics Society and an officer of the New York Zoological Society. In 1906, he had authorized an exhibit at the Bronx Zoo in which a 22-year-old African named Ota Benga was displayed in a cage in the monkey house. Sharing the cage with Benga was an orangutan.
When a local clergyman protested the exhibit, he said that it was clearly intended to be a demonstration of Darwin's theory of evolution. Local proponents of Darwinism apparently agreed and labeled the display educational. 10 years after this event, Ota Benga committed suicide.
During Hitler's regime.
Now, I want you guys to really see a really good, what can I call him? This guy is a mountain of how great you white people are. And when I say you white people, remember I mean myself, because I know where you all come from, even if you don't know. But what I'm saying is, if you would allow somebody like this to come to power where you have to have the whole world murdering each other, and we all know it was an incontested war between Europeans to control the whole world. But my point is, all you guys sat around and was listening to the speeches of this guy, and when you started hearing what he was talking about, he never should have went that far. But now, forever in America, you've had eugenics talking the same shit he was talking. It's mighty funny that he's talking about exterminating Jews and was allowed to go about doing it, and then for a short while he was able to pull it off and got stopped, according to history. But the American people, along with Europe too, has been committing acts of genocide and slavery and oppression and aggression against melanated people of this planet way back to the beginning of the 1400s, and even before that, prior to that, way back to when Constantine was still alive on the planet, when the freaking Roman Catholics was going all over the world, having the Christian crusade, killing everybody. So Hitler was really nothing but somebody spit on the floor. The whole history of the brutal, atrocious acts from Caucasian people against black people has been a whole freaking city of a pile of shit. Whole city full of it. One after the other.
The Germans were supplied with elaborate charts and complicated theses, supposedly proving the superiority of the German people. It is interesting to note that at the bottom of these charts were the colored people of the world, most conspicuously, the black people. Lloyd McKissick, National Director, Congress of Racial Equality, 1967.
An often overlooked fact about the German Holocaust is that the Nazis did not simply target the Jewish population. They went after the black community as well. Under the threat of being sent to concentration camps if they did not cooperate, Afro-German citizens were not only forced to undergo sterilization themselves, they were also required to turn over their children for sterilization.
That swastika that he got on his arm, that patch right there, it comes from ancient Kemet. It is all the elemental forces moving together to eradicate opposement of Ma'at. That bastard has a lot of nerves to have that on his arm. Let me tell you, those are the spiral forces of the universe that comes out here and destroys evil. And he put it on his arm and had the nerves to walk around. I'm going to find that and show you where they got that from. Right off of the walls in Kemet. What they call a swastika. No. What that is, I don't know the name of it, but I can show it to you. I'm going to find it and show it to you guys. They plagiarized that from Kemet too.
In his book Mein Kampf, Adolf Hitler explained the motivation behind such programs.
The Jews were responsible for bringing Negroes into the Rhine. It suits the purpose of a cool, calculating Jew who would use this means of introducing a process of bastardization in the very center of the European continent, and by infecting the white race with the blood of an inferior stock, would destroy the foundations of its independent existence. Adolf Hitler, Mein Kampf.
The Nazi attitude toward blacks was clearly defined in a 1944 book by Robert Ley, who was the head of the German Labor Front. Ley characterized the Jewish race as a disease-riddled parasite that had been created by unnatural interbreeding between white men and the racially inferior Negro. He described the result as a racial swamp that would eventually destroy the natural superiority of the Aryan race. Another Nazi publication described blacks as African brutes who had not been tamed even by centuries of slavery. It went on to say that any effort to assimilate people of African descent into civilized society was a waste of time, and that the lynchings of blacks in America did not merit any regret.
Since World War II, it has been well documented that Adolf Hitler was profoundly influenced by the American eugenics movement, and that many of his government's racial policies were actually developed from the writings of American eugenicists, like Madison Grant and Harry Laughlin. In fact, Hitler referred to Grant's book, The Passing of the Great Race, as his Bible.
Meanwhile, American eugenicists.
Let me tell you what that means in a nutshell. That means that Hitler got his instructions to carry out those murders that he carried out on those people in Germany. Like I always say, they were not all Jews. They were mostly blacks and Semites. And there was some Jews who got thrown in there and got murdered too. And I don't know how many, and I ain't going to say how little or how many or how large, okay? Because that's not my concern. But my concern is they are not going to sit their ass up and cash in as the sole victims of the Holocaust, when we know for a fact that every person that was in Europe that was non-white, what I mean is you were not proven to be 100% white. Your ass got killed too. They was killing people all over in Lithuania, you name it, all over the continent. So the Jews are not going to sit there. As a matter of fact, if you really want to know the real truth, I believe that the Jews are the ones who perpetuated all that bullshit and made a whole lot of money, because for some reason Hitler ass got smooth stopped the minute he started taking his ass into areas that was owned and ran by what came today to be known as Zionists. And for some reason it's when he did that Britain and America and everybody got involved with it, and then all of a sudden he's supposed to commit suicide and nobody know where his body is. No, them fools all got together and ran some game on everybody all over the planet and all made a bunch of money, all stole some land from people all in Africa, because they was all in Africa fighting that stupid ass war. So it's all a bunch of propaganda bullshit. And the people that got ripped off the most in this whole World War II thing too, again, was the black people who were slaughtered and murdered all over Europe as well as in Africa, because they ended their ass up in Africa fighting their war. Now what the fuck was Europeans doing in Africa fighting their war? Because they were murdering people, stealing their land under the disguise of Mussolini and all those people in Europe and Rome. Can't think of their names right now, but they fighting each other in Africa. What the hell you in Africa fighting for? Why couldn't you keep your war in Europe? Well, you was in Africa fighting because you was over there stealing the land of the people over there.
Thiele praising Hitler and holding up the Nazi eugenics program as a model for the United States to copy.
The leader of the German nation, Adolf Hitler, has been able to construct a comprehensive racial policy of population development and improvement. The difference between the Jew and the Aryan is as unsurmountable as that between black and white. Germany has set a pattern which other nations must follow. Dr. Clarence Gordon Campbell, 1935, President, Eugenics Research Association, New York.
Among those American eugenicists who most strongly supported the Nazis was a member of the American Eugenics Society, a director of the American Birth Control League, and a writer for the Birth Control Review. His name was Lothrop Stoddard.
As an avowed racist, Stoddard was the author of a book called The Rising Tide of Color Against White World Supremacy, which was widely promoted by the Ku Klux Klan. In another book, The Dragon and the Cross, Stoddard was identified as the exalted Cyclops of the Massachusetts chapter of the Klan.
Non-white races must be excluded from America. The red and black races, if left to themselves, revert to a savage or semi-savage state in a short time. Lothrop Stoddard, Director, American Birth Control.
On the 19th of December, 1939...
That means they might hang somebody and set them on fire.
Stoddard was given a personal meeting with both Adolf Hitler and
shoot them at the same time, cut their dicks off.
in charge of the Nazi Holocaust. SS leader...
That's what a savage would do.
Later, when a course on race was introduced at Halle University in Germany, its instructor stated that it would be modeled on the philosophies of American eugenicists, including Lothrop Stoddard. Eventually, Stoddard's racial views would even be featured in Nazi school textbooks.
The white race divides into three main subspecies: the Nordics, the Alpines, and the Mediterraneans. All three are good stocks, ranking in genetic worth well above the various colored races. Lothrop Stoddard, Director, American Birth Control.
To eliminate blacks from Germany, one of the people Hitler called on was a eugenicist who had once written that blacks are an inferior race of savages who should only be allowed to survive as long as they are used to the Aryan race. His name was Eugen Fischer, and about 20 years earlier, he had been one of the leaders of a system of concentration camps in southwestern Africa, where blacks were rounded up to be executed, experimented on, or held as free labor. Under Hitler, Fischer would serve on committees that planned the sterilization of all blacks in countries that came under German control. He would also be one of the first Nazi scientists to become publicly affiliated with the Carnegie-funded eugenics laboratory in Cold Spring Harbor, New York. Eventually, Fischer would also be put in charge of the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, which was funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. It was here that many of the Nazi programs for creating racial purity were developed.
In 1927, Margaret Sanger organized the World Population Conference in Geneva, Switzerland, and gave it front-page coverage in her birth control review. The events program shows that several of its attendees were colleagues of Sanger's from the American eugenics movement. It also documents that among those who were given a leadership role in the conference was Eugen Fischer, the man who would eventually lead the Nazi effort to eradicate blacks from Europe.
Another American eugenicist with Nazi connections was Harry Laughlin. Now, he was an official with both the American Eugenics Society and the American Birth Control League, and in 1928 his plan for using forced sterilization to eliminate those who might produce what he called degenerate offspring was published in the Birth Control Review. In 1936, Laughlin led an effort to distribute the English language version of a Nazi eugenics film to audiences in the northeastern part of the United States. He acquired the rights to the film from the Race Policy Office of the Nazi Party, and with the help of two other American eugenics organizations, had mailed literature to biology teachers at 3,000 U.S. high schools, urging them to show it in their classrooms. Later that year, Laughlin was praised in a Nazi newspaper and awarded an honorary degree from the University of Heidelberg for his contributions to the Nazi eugenics effort.
In the 1930s, a German psychiatrist named Ernst Rudin was named president of the International Federation of Eugenics in Cold Spring Harbor, New York, which was funded by the Carnegie Corporation. And in 1933, his call for racial purity was published in the Birth Control Review.
Later, Rudin would be chosen by Hitler to write Germany's eugenics laws, and at one point, he personally helped the Gestapo round up and sterilize several hundred blacks, who they referred to as Rhineland bastards. After the war, Rudin would be identified as one of the architects of the barbaric medical experiments that the Nazis carried out in their concentration camps.
It may be possible that Hitler actually got the idea for concentration camps while studying the American eugenics movement.
He didn't study no movement. They gave his ass
The state of Indiana had
a set of
allocated
instructions.
$300,000 to create a work colony in the city of Butlerville, where those who were labeled feeble-minded would be incarcerated. Then in 1932, Margaret Sanger called for the United States government to set aside farms and open spaces where certain groups of people would be segregated from the rest of society. She proposed that, among others, the illiterate, the unemployed, and the poor should be forcibly kept in these areas until they developed what she called better moral conduct.
Okay, so let me break it down to you. What they're saying right there is that the prison system that they're utilizing in America right now is disguised to be a system of rehabilitation, or in her words, better moral conduct. Okay, now the persons who need to be rehabilitated or have better moral conduct is the people who try to implement this system of control as to where they create so much failure in everyone's life, so much chaotic interference, and they benefit from it because they become wealthy enough where they can sit around and write propaganda like this with no one even scrutinizing them. King James had the same privilege because he was a wealthy faggot that became wealthy from oppressing people from slavery. So all these people that has the pen to push and they make the policies of what governs society are all the people that benefited from atrocious deeds to the human family, and that's how they sit in the seat of power today. So quite naturally, they're going to remain there by continuing to do the same thing. Now this is something that everybody on the earth need to think about. Everyone is always running around here talking about freedom and guns and everything like that, and forever this has been your way of living on the planet. And that's the reason right now that after all the history of war and war and war and war and war, that was all perpetuated under the objective to bring peace on the earth, we still haven't saw any freaking peace. So somewhere you're gonna have to just accept the fact that some people keep war alive because it's necessary to sustain their existence.
It was later discovered that under the Indiana program, the state was allowed to label someone feeble-minded if they were poor or did not do well in school, or if the state considered them to be shiftless or have insufficient moral judgment. But it's important to understand that this Indiana campaign was not unlike those in other states. For example, a eugenics project conducted in Massachusetts during the late 1920s proposed sterilization for young girls who were diagnosed as defective, which could include being unwed and pregnant, financially poor, or if the state labeled them socially undesirable. In addition, boys as young as 14 could be castrated for showing signs of kleptomania or for exhibiting what was described as solitary behavior.
In a single incident during 1935, the Nazis sterilized the children of over 600 German women because it was reported that those children had been fathered by black men.
We use it.
Listen, sterilization of a woman because they say that those children had been fathered by a black man, the numbers go greater than that. See, that's just corroborating my story that I tell you guys that those black men and those white women up in Europe, when they were building those cities around Greece and around Rome, those black men and black women were having a whole lot of intimacy with each other. And a whole lot of the offsprings that came from these intimacy grew into groups of segments of people that was calling themselves gypsies. And it was the Moors also. The Moors was also a people that had went up into Europe with the white men to help them build their civilizations. This is a part of history they don't want people to know about. Okay, all these sectors of people that was helping this white man get his own civilization started because they were tired of having to fight him all the time. He's always coming over the walls and shit, trying to come in and rob everybody, rape your women and everything. So they all got together. They said, we're going to educate them, build them some cities. Nope, that messed up and backfired on you. But while they were building the cities, Europe grew from the Mediterranean. That's the reason why you have Greece and Rome so close to Northeast Africa and all the areas that were synonymous with the builders that helped them build their civilizations, all right? While their civilizations was getting built, the black man and the white woman, as well as the white man and the black woman, were all mingling with each other, and all of these Semitic offspring started gathering in large numbers all around the continent of Europe, because these mixtures of people were very wise because of the intelligence that was common with the Egyptian people as well as the Moors. They was able to do very well, and they had extravagant lifestyles, and they had money, and they had wealth. As the Europeans grew and as the Jewish population grew, also what was known as Jews, but what they really were was just greedy merchants who took advantage of everybody all over Germany, as well as some of the people who ended up being murdered and all their riches and wealth stole from them. The whole plot was to eradicate the whole continent of non-white people and anyone that could not be proven to be what was a standard format of accepted as being Aryan or a 100% in compliance with what was the genetics requirement. So everyone who did not meet the requirements was murdered, or anyone who was in opposition to the movement was murdered, Anyone that was not in the proper arrangement of religious propaganda was murdered. Anyone who did not comply to special requests by the powers that be was murdered. Anyone who had the overriding desire to kill someone just because they had the power to do it, did it. So this was just evil, evil, evil that went on, and the whole motivating factor that made it happen was because a group of white men that was upset with their own selves and had the power to do it decided that they were going to kill all of the union of the women that had sired children that was of mixture blood. They wanted them all killed, and it was only because they did not want to see the white women doing what the white women wanted to do more than anything, and that was have children that had melanin in them. And that is the God's truth. I don't care who doesn't like it. The white man can't give a white woman a baby with melanin in it, so he forces her not to do that. And if she does do it, he let her know, we killed all those fuckers and you